us as we go. So welcome everybody to the Rasmussen University ECE webinar series. This is our summer edition of 2022. We're getting ready for the fall edition, which will have sessions in October and November. But this session right here that you're in, I think, is a doozy, and it will give you a lot of thinking, a lot of thought. Hopefully it won't keep you up tonight, but I will give you some things to think about in a good and positive way. So let me do some quick overview as those last folks are joining us here. I would be remiss if I didn't say we have wonderful early childhood education programs at Rasmussen University. I know that there are some former students on this call already, which is super cool, but Rasmussen does have programs all the way from a certificate to a bachelor completer. If you're looking to complete a bachelor's degree in early childhood, it is a leadership-focused bachelor's degree. It does not lead to teacher licensure in any state to teach in the public schools, but it does a great job of preparing you to be a center director, program coordinator, own your own child care, and all of the above. It is a great leadership program, so I encourage you to give it a look and take a peek at our other programs too on our website. One last chance call out for our tuition. Our tuition was reduced in April of 2022 to really support the need that's out there for early childhood educators to get credentials. And so we reduced our tuition for our certificate, our diploma, and our associate degree by a considerable amount. And so you might want to take a look if you've been hemming and hawing at getting a degree. You have a bunch of credits, but you don't have that associate degree. Or even, a bachelor's degree. It's not at the reduced price point, but it's still a great opportunity to just jump in and get started. Because I will tell you, I've just completed my doctorate, and I will tell you there's never a good time to go back to school. It's just something that if you know you want to do it, just jump right in and do it. You will feel so rewarded afterwards when you have it completed and you know that's yours forever. You don't have to renew it. You don't have to do anything else. You've got that degree forever, and it's a pretty awesome feeling. There are a lot of educational benefits as well that we offer through alliances. So Rasmussen works really hard to find you where you're at as a student. And that's usually employed in an early childhood program or working with a training program that's fully online. And so we've worked really hard to develop relationships with large and small early childhood centers across the country. Some of our largest partners are listed here: Bright Horizons, Learning Care Group, KinderCare Learning Companies are some of our larger alliances, although we have smaller ones and state-specific ones and regional ones all over the country. If you are employed in early childhood education, take a peek at our employer benefits page on our rasmussen.edu site. That will give you information about whether your employer might be one of those that is in an alliance with us, which really means that you have the opportunity for all kinds of educational benefits, tuition grants, other alliance benefits that come up depending upon your alliance partner. And so it's really helpful to kind of take a peek and see if that benefit will benefit you. Two other really cool alliances that I've worked with these ladies that run these organizations for years. And so we really wanted to find you and encourage you to take that experience you have with online training and turn it into an education. You're going to always need online training, so you always want to go back to these organizations. But if you are currently taking training with either Quorum e-learning, which is now with Teaching Strategies, or Pro Solutions Training, you're going to want to take a look at our ECE programs to see if one will fit your educational career goals, because we have some amazing alliance grant opportunities with these two organizations. And so you'll want to take a peek at those to make sure they're going to give you the benefit that you're looking for the degree program that you're looking for. So like I said, I encourage you to check it out. Go to the employer benefits page. You can also go for additional details to rasmussen.edu/corporate, which will be kind of a general corporate landing page, and then it'll funnel it to the right people who can help answer your questions. Whoops. always jumps ahead. We do have monthly ECE information sessions, and this is for early childhood education programs only, but we offer this as a quick opportunity for you to get some info about our educational programming, our degrees, what they are, what they serve, how they can help you, what types of courses you take, what are the courses like, all that kind of stuff. And you get a chance to ask questions that you might have, especially if you're making an informed decision about your educational journey. To me, that's the most important. I would love for you to come to Rasmussen, but some of you don't need an education. You've already hit your master's degree level or higher. Some of you might not be sure where you want to go or what type of program you want to go into, and so you're going to need to get information. And so make sure that whatever decision you make, wherever you decide to go, that it fits you and what your career goals are, and it fits your personality and the way you want to learn. That will really make a difference in your success rate and how much you really enjoy school. Navigating the WebEx room. So some of this is a little different tonight because of that large capacity that I mentioned we had register for the session. Everyone is muted, and we won't unmute everyone just because you're home. You don't need us to hear what's behind you. We want to make sure that nobody is distracted by background noise. We do recommend you use your computer, microphone, and speakers. If something happens and your audio goes kapooey, which happens. A couple people are like, I had to join by phone. You might need to. So you can flip back and forth. You can also log out and log back in. That will not affect your attendance, but you do just need to do it right away. But log out and log back in so that it might reset the system for you. But you can go from phone to computer. Add any questions or comments that you might have into the chat. Now, normally in our chat box, everyone would see everyone's posts. So that it could be a really cool sharing opportunity. Well, because of our size that registered for this session, it put us into a category without an open chat that everyone can see. So I can see your chats, so you can post a comment or a question to me. I might even ask you to post something, even though it's only going to go to me, because I want to keep you accountable and I want you to be thinking through some of the questions we're going to go over tonight. But know that nobody else is going to see your chat, just me. I'm the host, I'm the presenter, and I'm the panelist. So regardless of which one of those you choose to send your comment to, I will see it. As I mentioned, as we were waiting for the session to start, this is a 1 hour of in-service that is awarded to those who attend for the hour, and we do track attendance automatically through the system. You will receive a certificate email within 48 business hours of this session, which means by Monday night, you should receive an email in your inbox at the email that you used to register for the session. In that email will be a link to a certificate, not an attachment, but a link. And then also will be a PowerPoint presentation PDF of tonight's session so that you'll get a chance to take those notes with you and hopefully use them in your further reflective work or work with others in your program. Certificates, like I said, are sent by the email to the email you registered with, and you'll want to check your junk or spam folders. Sometimes they go there. Yahoo is notorious for sending things into the abyss. Others, Hotmail is another one that likes to send things into the abyss. We've actually had some recent AOL users. Those can also send things into the abyss. They are they just have strong firewalls that are set up that way on purpose and doesn't like it when things go out in mass emails. We've worked through systems to try to get that not to happen, but it can. So you want to check your junk or your spam folder before emailing me, and then we can certainly get you your certificate if you didn't get one, so don't worry about that. You are responsible to submit your own certificate to your own state's registry or to your own state's training organization that tracks training for you. Like I said, it's usually not an issue. For most states, they accept our trainings as an additional professional development training hour. It is not approved in any state ahead of time, partially because they're only an hour. You all don't need to be here for 2 hours and after working a full long day, so we've kept them all to that hour, sometimes hour and a half time frame. And those cannot be pre-approved in most states because they're too short. So that's why we just said, you guys are responsible, hopefully, fingers crossed, that they do go towards your training hours, but that's something you'll want to submit to your own state's professional development system. Gmail loves to put it in the promotions. Yes, they'll just look around your email because they show up in odd places sometimes. I've had student or participants email me weeks after they emailed me to get the certificate sent to them specifically because they had not found it. They find it in some random folder that it got sent to. So take a look around and then email me if you still need it. So I am your presenter, your facilitator for tonight's session. I'm the department chair for early childhood education at Rasmussen University. I'm also the department chair for human services. And I realized I didn't update, I did update it, I have a master's in early childhood education administration and a doctorate in early childhood education from Walden University. So let's jump in and get going. Becoming an optimistic early childhood leader. This was started by a conversation that I had with a colleague probably a year ago, I think, a year ago in October, about and around a book that was written by an early childhood professional, kind of guru in early childhood, and I'll show you that in a minute. And I really started reading this book, and it's a handbook that I got, and I really started reading this, and I really thought this needs to be something that is taught to every student, that is taught to every employee, because right now, especially right now, because we have lost our optimism in early childhood education, and when we lose our optimism in early childhood education, we lose hope. And early childhood educators, we are full of hope because we take care of, teach, nurture, and love the future of this world, right? And so we have to have optimism. We have to have that feeling of we can do anything and we can make it through anything in society, in our world, in our communities, in our centers, with our families. And so this book really helped me think a little bit differently about how I do work and how I want others to view their work. So some of the objectives we'll go over tonight are exploring the 5 commitments of being an optimistic leader. We're going to reflect on your own personal level of optimism, and then determine one goal, just one, for your professional path going forward. Okay, there we go. So my inspiration is this book, and so here's a copy of the book. This is a photo of the actual book. The 5 Commitments of Optimistic Leaders for Children. It is a reflective practice journal, and it's written by 3 individuals, Judy Jablon, Nicole Parks, and Laura Ensler. And this book is really part of a program that comes out of Judy's work, and it is just inspiration in paper form, which is really awesome. So let's just jump in because we've got a lot to talk about and time always goes way too fast. So the 5 commitments, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I can't commit to anything else in my life, right? I got to stop saying yes. I have to start saying no. That's not what these commitments really are. These commitments are more of kind of a perspective that you can take, something to think about, rather than something that you're holding, that someone else is holding you to. These are things you're holding yourself to. So the 5 of them in an overview would be think impact, cultivate self-awareness, nurture relationships, refine communication, and activate curiosity, okay? Think impact, cultivate self-awareness, nurture relationships, refine communication, and activate curiosity. Now, each one of these, okay, the way that this thought is broken down to is each one of these commitments is thought of from 3 perspectives. So there's 3 levels. It's how you act or interact with the commitment, okay, how you do things personally, how you work with another person. So maybe if you think about it, maybe your co-teacher, maybe it's your assistant director, maybe it's your co-owner, maybe it's your co-teacher, it's you and one other person, okay, how that commitment goes. And then you within a group, Okay, now you might be thinking, well, I don't quite get it. We're going to go through each one of these commitments, and we're going to think through how this commitment interacts with you as an individual, with you and how you work with another person, and then how you work with yourself and others in a group. Okay. Now this group could be you and the teachers in your pod. I think a lot of people call them pods, 2 rooms together. It could be you and a family child care home and your assistant. It could be you and your family child care home and the families that you work with. It could be a center director and all of your teachers that you work with. It could be a small group or a larger group, but you in a group. So let's start and look at the first one. Here we go. The first one is think impact. And I'm going to read this quote by Jane Goodall. This is a quote from the book that she had in the book, which they all fit so perfectly. I had to take them right out of the book and put them right in here. And these are common quotes that you can actually find that these authors or famous people have actually said, and they're out there in the world. So think impact. You cannot get through a single day without having an impact on the world around you. What you do makes a difference, and you have to decide what kind of difference you want to make. That's Jane Goodall. Jane Goodall is an environmentalist and a scientist. She is famous for her work with apes and gorillas in the wild. If you haven't seen any of her work, all you have to do is Google Jane Goodall and it'll come up with some great videos and research for you. Another quote that I came up with that I heard in a reflective supervision class that I took yesterday was, what I appreciate appreciates. What I appreciate appreciates. I love that. Right? What I appreciate appreciates. It's 2 different meanings of the word appreciate there coming into play. But think impact, and I'm going to read something from the book that I think explains what thinking impact means. It means that you are intentional about what you do, your presence, your interactions, how you present yourself, right? It's intentional. And it's intentional with the effect that you want that to receive, okay? So how do you want people to perceive you, right? How do you want people to receive what you're saying to them or how you're interacting with them? You can have some control of the outcomes that you are dealing with, some control, but it could be in the moment, like an in-the-moment type of thing. It could be something you've planned ahead of time, but it's something that you pause and think beforehand so that you can shape the result of your actions. Okay? Intentional is like the key word here when it comes to thinking impact, intentional. Now, question for you, and this is something I want you just to think about, okay? You don't have to comment in the chats if you want to. Like I said, nobody else sees it but me, so you are welcome to be as open and as comfortable as you want to be in the chat. But there's going to be some questions that I'm going to ask you, and these are reflective questions to help you understand what it means to think impact. These are questions from the workbook, and I want you to think through them. Like I said, you don't have to put anything in the chat, but if you want to, you certainly can. But as you're deciding how you want to do that, making an informed decision about something, okay, and it's kind of anticipating or hoping for a particular outcome, but you can't guarantee it, right? Because you can never guarantee what other people do, but it's something that you're thinking about and planning ahead for. And it's something that I'm trying to think of the right word here. Kind of like, what do you want to have happen, right? It's kind of like manifesting, right? You've probably heard that word a lot. I've seen it a lot lately, online, on the news, in articles I've read, manifesting, right? Thinking about something that you want to have happen, right? Or thinking about how you want something to be received or thought of, or how you want to be thought of. I know one of the things I remember from when I was in college was that people would tell me, when you get into the work world, you want to dress for the part that you want, right? You want to dress for the position you want, not the position you have. Right? So if you're a teacher in an early childhood classroom and you want to eventually be a director someday, are you going to wear holey jeans and, you know, ratty gym shoes and t-shirts that have logos on them? I know some of you have dress codes, but just thinking, you know, are you going to dress very casual and what's likely very comfortable? Or are you going to dress a little bit nicer, a little bit more together perhaps, a little bit more thoughtful? Because you know you want to be that center director someday and you want people to think of you as that, right? So you want to dress how you want to impress for a position that you want versus the position you have. So that's something I remember from college, and it kind of fits in with the impact idea. What impact do you want to have? Now we want to think of these three, this commitment in the three ways. Whoops, keeps bouncing ahead. What is the impact you want to have on the world? What is the impact you want to have on the world? Okay, not that you want other people to do, but you want to have on the world. So think of that for a second. I'm just going to give you a second, because if we did all of these for the whole thing, we'd be here for hours. What factors contribute to the impact, oh, sorry for the spelling error, you want to have on your interactions with another person? Now this one's really interesting because you could choose to think about your impact maybe on that person that you don't get along with, right? That person who every time that person opens their mouth, they rub you the wrong way, right? So how can you be intentional with how you interact with that person so that it doesn't rub you the wrong way, or that that person hears you, or that that person listens to you and doesn't turn you off when you start to talk? What kind of impact do you want to have on your interactions with the other person? And then how do you know whether you're having an impact on a group? How do you know? You know whether you're having an impact on a group. And would that impact be effective or undermining for the group, right? Think about that in terms of everything intentional, from your body language to your tone of voice to what you say. Maybe you're the naysayer of the group. You're like, ah, it's never going to work. Ah, it's never going to work. You know, how does that have an impact on the group? And how could instead, let me think about that. There might be a way to make that work. How could that change and have a different impact on the group? Yes, I see people typing it. This is wonderful. So I may or may not comment on everybody's comments just because it'll take forever for us to do this. But this is really important. And that's why I think it's number one, because thinking about your impact is really critical, okay? Really critical. You want people to see you the way you want to be seen, right? You don't want people to see something that you aren't intending, right? And that's important. Everyone's talking about positive attitude and having a positive attitude. Absolutely. But you also don't want to be having toxic positivity. Have you ever heard of that before? Where it's like everything's rainbows and sunshine and unicorns and everything's going to be great all the time. Because that doesn't help when things are really tough. You want to still have an outlook that's positive, but you also need to be real in that time, right? So you need to have impact that is realistic, right, and honest. But it's your whole demeanor. It's your look, it's your tone of voice, it's your body language, it's everything. It's what's behind you on the screen. That's become a big deal right now about impact, is what people see behind you, right? When you're on a webinar or you're on a conference call or a Zoom room, right? Because you want them to see things that give the impact that you're looking for, whether it's to your career, about your family, whatever it is, right? So here's the question I really want you to think about. Now, if you have a piece of paper in front of you, I encourage you to pull it out. If you want to pull up that Post-it note app on your computer, you can use that too, or anything that you can write something down. Text it to yourself. If you have a phone in front of you, that is a great way to keep track of things, by the way, if you don't have that already. I'll get to the right screen here. Practice goal number 1. And this is something you can even start implementing tomorrow. How will you stay focused on the impact of your actions? How will you stay focused on the impact of your actions? I'll give you one idea. This is something that you probably have heard before, whether it's in memes or stories or whatever, people telling you, is typically our work is pretty hard in early childhood. It's tiring, it's physical, it's emotional, it's a lot of work, right? And you come home at the end of the day and you might have had a really tough day, really busy day, lots of sad children, maybe some injuries, maybe just your co-teacher was out sick. I mean, goodness knows, right? And it's just a tiring day, and you've got to come home to your kids or to your family, and instead of just getting out of your car and walking into your house or your apartment and taking it all out on your family, or just sitting there and then being drained and your family's like, what's wrong with her, is right before you walk into your house, you stop. And maybe you have a tree nearby your front door, or maybe you have, you know, some kind of something hanging on the front of your door, or maybe you do it before you even get out of your car. Maybe you've got some kind of little like thing in your visor that you can use, or in your glove compartment, and you kind of touch it and rub it, and you say, I'm going to let go of all that stuff that I dealt with today. And I'm going to come into my house, and I'm going to be intentional about about the impact that I have on my family. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to be focused on them, because that's what matters now. Work is over. Yes, it was a tough day, but I'm leaving it here, and I'm not taking it in my house with me. Yes, I'm not sitting in my car for a while. And I've heard people, you know, talk about it, and I know my husband and I are the same. We work at home now, and so we don't have a commute. So if it's a really rough day, you know, the commute is down the 2 flights of stairs to our living room from our upstairs. It's not that hard, and it's hard, though, if it's been a rough day, to let go of the day. So my impact would be that I go for a walk, or I read to get myself away from work and into a different world, and then I can focus on my husband, I can focus on my dog, I can focus on all the stuff that I need to do in my house or want to do that night. And I feel like I've had that break, and I'm intentionally putting focus on my family. So think about that. How will you stay focused on the impact of your actions? What will you use to do that? Now, the second one is cultivating your self-awareness. Cultivating your self-awareness. And this was a quote by Tracy Ellis Ross. I don't know if you know who she is. She's Diana Ross's daughter. If you're old school like me, you know who Diana Ross is. She was just here at the Minnesota State Fair. She's also a TV personality. You've probably seen her on television before. But she says, it was when I realized I needed to stop trying to be somebody else and be myself. I actually started to own, accept, and love what I had. Wow. Profound. Right? Totally profound. Creating self-awareness, okay, is to guide your thoughts, your emotions, and behavior. And it means noticing what's going on in you, inside of you, right? That self-awareness, like how are you feeling? What are you thinking? How does that impact you, right? And choosing how you want to feel, act, and think. Okay, so it's a little bit of intention, right? But it's really about what's going on in you, right? What are you thinking about? We in our profession have a tendency to give everything to others, and we don't pay attention to how we feel. We stay in jobs where we're miserable because we do it for the children. And while that's admirable, how does that impact them? That choice, right? Impact them. If we're miserable, are we really doing it for the children? Or would we be better off with somebody in that position who really wanted to be there, and you were in another position that you really wanted to be in? So think about that sometimes. Sometimes we do it and we think, oh, got to stay for the kids, got to stay for the kids. Are we really staying for the right reasons for the kids? And is it really benefiting them like we think? Being self-aware and cultivating that self-awareness helps you rely on your strengths more. Now, you might think it helps you rely on your weaknesses, but it doesn't. It helps you rely on your strengths and knows when you need support to help navigate the challenges. Okay, so it's a way for you to listen to yourself. Now, this is a big thing we talk about with our kiddos too. We talk about self-regulation, right? That's a new, well, not new, it's been around for a while, buzzword that we use a lot in early childhood right now. Is helping our children self-regulate, which really means that they are understanding and managing their behavior and their reactions, right? Do we understand our behavior and our reactions? I challenge you on that one. You might think you do, but do you really do that? So cultivating your self-awareness means reframing negative thoughts and feelings and focusing not on what you can control, but more, or not focusing on what you can't control, but focusing more on what you can control, okay? And then also being more optimistic. Right? You're not negative Nelly. You're not negative Nelly. Being an optimistic, self-aware person will be a role model for the children to be able to be self-aware. I remember telling people once that, you know, sometimes I would tell the children when I worked with preschoolers and 2-year-olds that I would tell them that I am going to go and sit and do a puzzle because I need a minute to get my thoughts together because maybe it was a little bit stressful and the kids are now redirected and I'm like, I'm going to go sit over here for a second and do a puzzle because I need to rethink where I'm at. Kind of like I'm giving myself my own timeout, right? If you use timeout, which I hope you don't, but if you do, sometimes we need that, right? To refocus ourselves, to be aware, I am losing my control. I need to get my control back, so I'm going to sit down where I can still see the children, where I'm still in ratio, where I'm still there. And likely, when you do it, they'll do it too. So they'll come join you anyway, right? Who can you change? Yes, Patricia. Who can you change? Only yourself. And that's the point of this. Sometimes in early childhood, we worry a little bit about all of our friends and our coworkers, and we get a little bit into everybody else's business. And while, yes, we need to work as a team, that doesn't mean that you should be more aware of your coworkers than yourself, right? Redirecting yourself, yes, Helen. Sometimes we need that, like, you know, a lot, actually. Working from home, I know I need that a lot more. Cultivate self-awareness by asking yourself some questions like this. How do you stay grounded when you feel overwhelmed? Okay. What do you need in order to receive feedback from others about how they experience you? Ooh, have you ever asked others how they experience you? In corporate world, there's these things called 360s, and they're 360 reviews. So if you are, say, in a position where you have people you report to, like your boss, and then you might have people report to you, this 360 has the people that report to you do a review of you, and the people you report to do a review of you, and you do a review of you. And then you look at all the results and see. You can see what people think of you from both ends and all sides, and including what you think of you. And how do you feel in a group? Depending on the size and makeup of the group, how do you feel different? Sounds scary, 360. They can be, actually, but they're really helpful. But think about how you feel in a group. I've known lots of early childhood professionals over the years that love being with children, but being with parents or other coworkers, they shut down, right? They're very animated and active and energetic with kids, but when they're with adults, It's like they are a totally different human being, right? It's where your comfort zone lies. So think about that. How do you feel in a group of children? How do you feel in a group of peers? How do you feel in a group of families or parents? Right? It's going to be different each time, but you need to know how you feel in those situations so that you can be intentional and you can know what impact you want to make. So your question, your goal I want you to take 30 seconds to think about is, how will I pause throughout the day to do a self-check to see how I am doing right now? How will I pause throughout the day to do a self-check to see how I'm doing right now? Think about that. Especially think about it when you're with a group of 20 preschoolers or 8 babies and a coworker. Deep breaths and rub their heart. Isn't that sweet? Take a drink from their water bottle. They did say water bottle. Taking a moment to breathe, counting to 10, right? Counting to 10. Block off time on their calendar. Make sure you have time. You know, Diane, I do that all the time, and then I work right through the block anyway. Box breaths, yes. Any kind of those breathing techniques are really great. And you can still be in the presence of the children and still be active with the children and take a deep breath and do that breathing exercise you practiced. What a great role model for the kids. Because they'll ask you, what are you doing? You can tell them, I needed to think about how I'm feeling right now. Wow, wouldn't that be a great treat to give the kids? Break out into musical singing. Okay, that's cool too. I'm a musical fanatic. Step outside for a minute. Yep. I know people who used to ask to go to the bathroom just so that they could get a minute to kind of regroup, right? Reframe themselves. Wonderful. All right, let's look at the third one. The third one is nurture relationships. Ooh, that big R word, right? Relationships. Maya Angelou, I hope you know who she is. She's a famous poet and literary icon. Passed away, I don't even know how long ago. It seems like a long time ago. She's very profound and has written a lot of things that you hear in regular society in the world that you never knew that she wrote. But people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. You've heard that before, right? Yep. And Enid said yes, she's heard that one before. Love her work. Yes, very profound. And this statement, you probably hear it all the time. Did you know that she said it? Right? Passed in 2014, thank you. It seems like a long time ago, and it almost is. So nurturing relationships is something we are told to do as part of our jobs, right? We're told to nurture the relationships with the children. But in our role, we have to nurture relationships with the kids, their families, our coworkers, and that's a lot of relationships to nurture, right? It is, but that's okay, right? It means that you're forging ahead positive interactions with others, productive connections, not just surface level, I smile, say hi, you're fine, that kind of stuff, right? It's actually deeper conversations and a deeper relationship. Relationships too, when you cultivate or nurture a relationship, in any relationship, it takes a positive experience over time to build trust. There's two things in there. Over time and build trust. Trust to some people, and I watched Married at First Sight, guilty pleasure, and someone said on Married at First Sight the other night that they don't just trust someone. Trust is earned. I would argue trust isn't earned, trust is given, right? Trust is something that takes time to build. It's not something that is one-sided. It's two-sided, right? Trust is something that you do together in a relationship, not I do it and I wait for you to show me that I can trust you. No, it's two-sided, right? It's a two-way street, and it does take time. It's not something that you can immediately do, right? And trust is something that you can give to somebody, but it's not something that's really built until it takes time to build it or until time has passed, right? And I think that's important because that's something that time is something we often don't give ourselves when it comes to relationships, right? We expect children to trust us right away, and we expect children to listen to us right away. Why should they? They don't know us. They've been on this earth for 4 years, and the most people that they know have been in their household and their neighbors, right? So why should they trust us? They don't know us from Adam. So we have to build that trust with them, right? It takes time, and it's two-way. There is a difference between personal and professional relationships. And I think in early childhood, that's something that I've seen that's been one of the most challenging things for teachers specifically, is you get very close to a child and their family, and that line between professional and personal blurs really fast. And suddenly they're sharing with you all these things that are really personal things, and you're knowing all these things about the children and their families. And yes, sometimes you babysit, which I think is a violation of that line and that division. And relationships that are professional and personal need to be professional or personal because of those trust issues, right? Because of those trust issues. And they're different. A professional relationship is different than a personal relationship, right? We could talk all night about that, about how different they are. So it's something to pay attention to in your relationships with other people. Is how are they different than your relationships with people, between your people at home, and your best friends, and your neighbors, and your family, and the families that you care for in your program, your coworkers that you care for. Sometimes you need to throw the switch and be like, okay, you're my best friend when we're not here, right? We can go out drinking together, we can go out and party, we go out on vacations together, we have fun, but when we're here, now it's a professional relationship. And that's different than the personal relationship I have with you. There's different boundaries, different lines, different ways of interacting, different impact that you're going to have on one another. So here's some things to think about with nurturing relationships. As you were growing up, what messages did you learn about relationships? This is a heavy question, heavy question. In what ways have you learned to use that or had to unlearn it? Do you initiate relationships or do you wait for the other person to reach out to you? And does it depend on whether they're children, parents, coworkers? You know, is it different? Right? I would bet most of you, as early childhood educators in some capacity, reach out to children right away, right? My daughter calls me the baby whisperer. I'll interact with a baby, never met them before in my life. I will interact with them like they're my best friend and I've known them forever. I love infants, so I will always make that connection first. How do you do it? And Ruby, I would love to learn more about that. I would love to learn more about that. When you are in a group setting, do you reach out to meet new people? And how do you do it? Right? Think about those times you're at a conference. I know I'm really good at reaching out to new people at the beginning of the conference. By the end, I am so overwhelmed. I'm an introvert at heart. So by then, my capacity for nurturing relationships has reached its limit halfway through a conference. Right. Don't reach out to new people. So how does that nurture relationships? If you don't reach out to new people easily, how do you nurture relationships? How could you nurture relationships? So your practice goal is this. I'm going to give you 30 seconds. As you reflect on professional relationships that directly impact your work, how are you sustaining ongoing open dialogue and partnership with each of them? Okay, these are some great comments coming through the chat. I really wish you could all see them, but there's also some really personal ones coming through, and I think that it's good that you're writing them down. It keeps you accountable. When you write something down, you're more than likely, even if you type it in, you're more than likely to remember it. So think about that. You're more than likely to remember it because you've typed it or written it down. Refined communication is our next commitment. This, I think, is our most critical one. And I'm a college instructor. That's probably why I think so. But it says effective leaders are able to say to the person they want to impress the most, I don't know. If you don't know who Stacey Abrams is, she is a political figure. She is in the Democratic Party, and I think she's been running for, or is running for, governor of Georgia. So she might be a very polarizing figure to you. But what she says here is so important. And if I could have you raise your hand, I would. How many of you say, I don't know, ever? You should say it all the time because we don't know everything. Even though we think we might know everything, we don't know everything. And I think that's really important for us to communicate that to other people. Sometimes we communicate that we are know-it-alls, and we are not know-it-alls. And it's good to communicate that. A few people are saying communicate that to children. And I think that's really important because you're setting that example then for them that you don't know, but you can find a way to find out, right? Whether that's through an experiment, whether that's through research, whether that's through asking questions, you can find out. And that is what we need to continue and grow our society. Yep, Helen just said, I don't know. How can we find out? Yes. So refining communication is really to have mutual clarity, making sure others understand what you're saying and that you are understanding what they say. It takes the time to think, okay? We don't just speak. I'm notorious for just speaking what's on my mind at a meeting and playing devil's advocate is what I say all the time. I am not a listener ahead of time. I'm a horrible listener. When it comes to listening, most of the time I have to really force myself to pay attention to what's being said at that time by that other individual or in a group, because I will automatically jump ahead to answering the question or solving the problem or thinking about what's next on the agenda, that kind of thing. But refining means that you're going to remove the impurities or unwanted elements, and you're going to make small changes. So refining communication is something that I think we all need to do desperately. From being prolific talkers to being quiet, not talking at all people. Imagine if children were surrounded by conversations of inquiry, seeking solutions, rather than tirades about roadblocks. That's a quote from the book. Right? A lot of times our communication is all about complaining or all about talking about what's wrong in society rather than asking, I don't know, let's find out. I don't know, how can we figure that out? Sorry, my phone is buzzing. We have to be attuned to our audience, that our communication style may need to change, right? And for us, that needs to change a lot because we have to go from talking to the kiddos to talking to the adults to talking to the families. We've got a whole lot of communication styles that we've got to deal with. And we need to make sure that we're paying attention to those styles. We need to make sure that we're paying attention to how we communicate in our relationships. That's got to be different, right? Professional, personal, relationships with families, children, colleagues. It's all connected. And so if we're refining our communication, some questions we can think about is, how has your identity, I know all these tough questions, shaped your style of communicating? Are you an only child like me? So that's probably why I talk all the time. Birth order, how does your gender influence it? Your culture, maybe your expectations, like how you were expected to be the one to do all of the work. Maybe there's taboos. Maybe you're not supposed to talk to adults. That's how you were raised. So talking to adults, even if you're an adult, is hard for you. What are some ways you assess whether you are communicating effectively with another person? Do you ask them? And think about how you convey messages in a group. Do you take the time to think, write ideas down first, listen to see how others respond, or think while you're speaking? I think while I speak. Yeah. So being aware of these things, if you notice these all connect, right? If you're aware of your communication, it's going to change based on your relationships. You need to be intentional. Think about the impact you want to make on the person, on yourself, like the impact you want to make on others, the impact you want to have between you and one other person, the impact you want to have with the group. Communication is vital. So how do you communicate? Are you self-aware about how your identity shapes your communication style? Or maybe how you expect others to communicate to you? I know it can be really hard for college instructors to adapt to the different communication styles of the students, where sometimes communication can be very blunt, or sometimes it's in a dialect that's harder to understand, or maybe it is in your dual language learners. So you're kind of mixing together two languages as you're trying to communicate your thoughts. And so helping instructors understand, right, is also important, right? So here's your practice goal number 3. How can you practice remaining aware of your verbal, nonverbal, and written communication techniques in situations that are easy and situations that are challenging? It's your verbal, nonverbal, and written communication. Love that, Levita. She says, I take a moment to let it sit with everyone in the room and meet other staff members halfway. She happens to be an author of an anti-bias book, so she's got lots of practice in that area. Meeting people where they are. Yep. Think before you speak. It's always the better option. But in our society, we're kind of that quick to respond society, right? Before somebody Googles it, you better get your answer in there, right? So we sometimes forget to stop and think. And the last one is the most fun one, and that's activating your curiosity. And this one I think is rather self-explanatory, but I think it's something that we need to do both with ourselves, with another person, with a group, and most importantly with our children. Albert Einstein says, I am neither clever or especially gifted. I am just very, very curious. Very, very curious. Curiosity allows us to continue learning, right? What if we stopped asking questions? What if in history people didn't ask questions? They didn't say, what if? Or how might that work? Or how do we think we can make that happen? We might not have antibiotics. We might not have transportation. We might not have the internet. I don't know if it's good or bad, right? The internet. There's so many things you could list. We might not have Post-it notes, for God's sakes. What would we do without Post-it notes? So curiosity is one of the things that if we can nurture that within ourselves, we will naturally start nurturing it with our children and our work every day. But it is really important that we pay attention to our curiosity. So here's some questions to think about. Who or what has influenced you to become a curious person? And I want to add on here, who or are you a curious person? Maybe that's the question. Do you see yourself as a curious person? And if so, who influenced you to become one? Reflect on whether you are curious to understand what a person is thinking. Remember, this is the person plus one, and feeling, or do you tend to make assumptions? And how might that change between children and adults? Barbara, that's not okay. She says she often doesn't like to look stupid. How many of you could say that so you just don't say a thing, right? But asking questions just means that you're curious, right? You want to know. I know so many people that are parents that have told me that they, and they're parents of from other cultures other than my own, and some of them speak multiple languages. Some of them are fresh from the country of origin. Others have been in this country for generations, but they have a very strong cultural background and cultural identity. And they will often wait for teachers to ask questions about their cultural background or ask questions about why they might believe a certain thing or request a certain thing or want their children to be a certain way. They want you to ask questions. They want you to know. They want you to be curious because that just means you're going to know their child better. Exactly. Kalina, thank you. Don't let others' opinions shut down your curiosity. Find out. I lost it just there. It went out. Find out for yourself. What happens in a group to shut down your curiosity? Now, we just mentioned one, right? How you feel, right? Now, she's aware of how she feels, right? And she knows that that makes her feel awkward, that makes her feel poor, that makes her feel, uncomfortable. But what could she do then to feel less uncomfortable and nurture that curiosity without feeling bad or without feeling the S word, as kids would say, right? So here's your final reflection question. I realize my last one was misnumbered, but this one says, how do you activate curiosity in yourself? How do you activate curiosity in yourself? Oh, I love that. My son who's on the spectrum has spiked my curiosity in the way he thinks and feels. Yes, totally different from how you think and feel. So you want to know what it's like, right? Do we ask our kids in our classrooms, in our groups, in our family child care homes, do we ask them what they want to know about something? One of the most fun activities I ever did, and this is something some of you may have heard me talk about in other webinars, is back when I was a student teacher, University of Illinois, and I was a student, and I was doing my observations and work in a private preschool program in Champaign, Illinois. And it was in an old house, and the owner lived above, and the child care program, preschool program, was in the basement and the first level of this old house. So it was very homey. It was all for pre-K kids, so kids between the ages of 3 and 5. And they were mostly children of people who worked at or taught at the university. So they were coming from all different cultural backgrounds. Some spoke several languages, all different families, all different makeups of families, extended families, nuclear families, the whole thing. What was really neat, though, is that these kids were like really curious about stuff. And this teacher would ask these kids questions all the time. What do you want to know about that? What more do you want to know about that? Tell me what you're thinking about that. What questions do you have about that? All the time. And write everything down. Clipboards were everywhere in the room because everybody was writing things down for the kids. They would dictate stuff to us. We would write it down. Some of the kids would try to write it out themselves. But one of the things they wanted to know about was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And they were really popular at the time, so this dates me a bit. But the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were really popular, but most of the feeling out there in the early childhood world was they're very aggressive. We don't want the children to play them because they're very aggressive. And what do they really teach the kids? So these kids really wanted to know about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They were really into it, and they were trying to act out, little sparring matches between the turtles and the bad guys and all that stuff. And it was really interesting to watch. And so one day we just sat all the kids down that were interested in this, and it wasn't the whole group. It was just maybe like 6 or 7 kids. And we asked them, so what do you want to know? Or we asked them first, what do you know about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And so they told us stuff that we didn't know, right? All the different character names and where they lived and what they ate and all that stuff. And then we said, what do you want to know about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? And they said, well, they want to know what real turtles eat, and do turtles really live in the sewer? And some of the kids even said, what is a sewer? Because they really didn't know. And what does a sewer do? And how do you make pizza? And all kinds of questions, right? It was everywhere. And so what we did was we started creating things and doing activities with the kids that came from that interest level. We did not have the internet at the time, so we were pulling out encyclopedias and books from the library about turtles, what real turtles were, where they lived, what they looked like, what they ate, all that kind of stuff. And the kids figured out that they really didn't look like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but they did, because they both had shells and all their shells were different. It was very cool. We built a sewer, yes, out of boxes in the space. They painted it. We helped them cut out holes. We had all kinds of stuff. They learned what sewers do. Yes, they did. They learned what sewers do. We did not go on a field trip to go to a sewer, but we did talk about it, and we were able to look at books and all that kind of stuff about sewers. Very, very interesting. This went on for probably at least half the school year in some capacity. And every day we would reset them again, and we say, okay, now how did it go? What did you learn? What else do you want to know? Is there anything? Okay, good. We're still going to work on this tomorrow. We set our plan, and we move on. It was fantastic. And boy, were those kids curious, and they learned so many things that we never planned on them learning before. And some of those things were highly productive, and others were fun. And it was just a great time, right? That curiosity, we allowed them to have it. So the last thing I want you to do, what would happen if questions? I love those too. Now, the last thing I want you to do is I want you to focus on one. Now, I'm guessing most of you don't have this book, and that's okay. I encourage you to get it, though, because I do think it is really helpful. And there's lots of more questions in here. There's lots of things that you can have a conversation about. There's lots of space to write, if you can see. I don't know if you can see that real well. Lots of space to write, so it can be kind of like a journal for you. It's a great tool for staff meetings. You can do parent share conversations. It's wonderful. I highly encourage you to take a peek. But for now, I want you to think about one of these 5 commitments, and I want you to choose just one commitment. And for this one, I want you to type it in the box, even though no one else can see it. It is you telling yourself, I'm going to choose one, and only one. I don't want to see 2, just one. And I want you to pick one, and I want you to make that your focus for the next week. Really be intentional with it. What does it mean for you? And I'll show you the book again in a second. What is your one? Now here's your the book. Okay, here's the picture of the book. It's by Judy Jablon. You can probably search that in Amazon and you'll find it. It is also, you can go to her leadingforchildren.org website. It's an organization that does promote this. You can order the book through there too. They do a lot of workshops, and there's lots of other resources on there for you. There's like some training sessions that they do and everything. I think it's a wonderful organization, but this book is like really awesome. So I definitely encourage you to pick it up. This is just a taste of what this book can offer you in refining your practice, making you an optimistic leader, somebody who feels like they have something to give in this field, that there is hope, there is teamwork, there is camaraderie, there is support, and this is a very viable and vibrant field of study, of practice, of help for these children. You are making a huge impact. Remember that one quote? Basically, every day you make an impact on a child or on a person. And that one other one that I said, what I appreciate appreciates. What you do blossoms, right? What you water blossoms. I know there's some kind of quote that's about that. Think about that. Don't take every day for granted. So that is all for today. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining me tonight. If you have any questions, you're welcome to email me. A reminder for those of you who joined a little bit later, we will be doing or sending an email to you by Monday evening that will have a link to the certificate for participation in this session. You would then open the link in the email to get your certificate. There will also be PowerPoint slides in a PDF that you can refer back to, so you can get started and have an understanding of this book that I hope you will all go out and buy. It is not that expensive because it's pretty small, but you'll get that email by the end of the night, Monday night. Double check your spam folder, double check your junk mail to make sure it hasn't gone there. And I really wish you all the best this school year. I guess it's not, it's already here, this school year. And I hope to see you at future webinars with us. The next one in October, which you'll get information on pretty soon, will be on bullying, or bully behavior, I should say, with preschool kids, and whether or not that really truly exists and what we can do to help nurture the behaviors that we want to see versus the behaviors that we might see. So thank you very much, everyone, for coming. I totally appreciate you. I hope you have a wonderful evening. Again, a wonderful school year, and I hope to see you back with us in October. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great evening.